Hello everyone, my name is Akal and I am a somatic therapist. If you'd like to find out about the work that I do, you can check out my website, which is posted down below this video. So today, what I'm going to cover is, this is, I think, maybe the third or fourth video I've done on a series of videos I'm calling Unpacking the Penis, which are just really videos related to, men's relationships with their penises. It's actually much more complex than you would think. So what we're covering today, you can see my wonderful graphics, is sexual energy. So I've done videos on sexual energy before, but I kind of I primarily focused on the philosophy, the understanding of sexual energy and how it's connected to the whole man. And I think that's probably where I'm going to start off with this video is again this idea that the sexual energy is not separate from the rest of the flow of life force moving through you. We call it sexual energy only because that energy, that life force that's moving through you, which animates your existence, happens to be passing through the area of the body that's associated with sexual energy, or the genitalia, or the sacral chakra, or whatever you want to refer to it as. So, and once that energy hits that point, this is when a man needs to start exercising a little bit of awareness, which is the big disconnect that I perceive in men in general and in our culture specifically. But the big disconnect with men is that sexual energy rises. And what do? Well, most of the time it's felt as a pressure. It's the pressure of horny. And this pressure is full and it's rich. It's got a lot of biochemistry attached to it. A lot of hormones attached to it. So when horny rises, most of the time men are like, oh, I can't handle that. So they discharge and they release. And again, that's fine. It's your choice. It's it's what you want to do. That's fine. But the reality is that I only ask those of you who are watching this video who tend to ejaculate frequently, daily, every other day, more than once a week anyway. I would ask you to spend a week or two of no releasing and to see how you feel. This is really the only way you can kind of determine whether or not you're actually losing something when you're discharging. I know personally I was. And so let me go ahead and tell you a story. So it's not so much a story as it kind of illustrates, in my opinion, just how sexual energy is connected to the rest of our being. So my big goal when it comes to sexual energy is to retain for a month. So I wait a whole month before I release. And so when I'm good at this, which is not all the time, but when I'm good at it and I last that whole month, what ends up happening is that, a couple things. One of the things is that I have multiple orgasms. I don't have multiple orgasms unless I get up to about 2 weeks. So 2 weeks of no discharge. Then I start to have these like little multiple orgasm kind of things. And I do this just simply by contracting the tip of my penis. There's a lot of tricks that go along with this. It's not just contracting the tip of my penis. It's also the fact that I've been doing Kundalini yoga for 20 years and a lot of other practices. So, and I'm going to get into that in a moment, how to cultivate these pathways so you can have multiple orgasms and you can take advantage of abstaining from discharge. And again, what the idea of what this abstaining from discharge does is, so once I get to a month of no discharge, this happened the other day, like it's springtime here or early summer, I don't know what to call it, but lilacs are blooming. I love the way lilacs smell. They're wonderful. So the other day I'm just walking down the road and all of a sudden I got this breeze came and I got this waft of like lilacs and I had like an orgasm. And again, these little orgasms I talk about, don't think like they're equivalent to an ejaculation orgasm. They're not. But what they are is there's vitalizing force that rises up in your body that's pleasurable. and it's a blissy kind of feeling. But what was beautiful about that to me wasn't that I had this like little orgasm. I mean, like I said, I do that in the morning. I give myself like 20 of these things. What's significant is the sense of merger, the sense of connection to all that's around me, my surroundings, my environment, to nature. That sense of connection is diminished when my sexual energy is low. When my sexual energy is low, usually, I'm in my head, I feel disconnected from my body. And this is because of what happens with horny. So horny is a self-sensual feeling. It's a feeling that draws you into your body, not away from the body. And I know many of us use visual aids when we're masturbating, or if we have a lover or a partner, we become, many of us, myself included, we can kind of get tunnel vision. We start looking at very specific things on our partner, the butt or the breasts or whatever it is. The point is that tunnel vision, again, it's an externalization of our energy, of our life force. And I'm not saying it's inherently wrong. I'm just simply saying that it's externalizing the energy. So when you build up this energy, you allow sexual energy to build and to ramp up in your being. And like I said, abstain. What ends up happening is that your sensory system starts to bring in more content. And it's not that it's bringing in more content. I should rephrase that. It's that your conscious mind is better integrated into the body because it's in a feeling and sensing place. When you discharge, there's less to feel. There's less to sense. And again, as that sexual energy builds, there's more to feel, more to sense. I hope this is all making some sense. And again, all you have to do really think about, this should bring in the profundity of it all, is that pre-cum, post-cum. Are you or are you not a different person? Are you or are you not, behaving differently towards your partners that you're with, pre and post-cum? Pre-cum, you're all about it. You're all about your partner, you're all about the person you're with. And then you release, and then, I'll speak for myself again. Sometimes I'm like, give me some space. For me, I'm a bit like a dog who wants to go lick their wounds. So I'm going to go scurry off and go lick my wounds. And that's how I feel. Like a discharge is a discharge. It's the loss of some sort. And I'm not implying that my partners are vampiric in some way. I'm simply saying that a loss of energy is a loss of energy, and it's felt, and it's significant. So, my beautiful illustrations here. I'm going to go ahead and cover what they call, what the Taoists call, and a lot of the Taoist practices are actually very similar to Tibetan Tantra and a lot of other practices that are more kind of tantric in nature. So this is relevant for those of you who are interested in Tantra. What makes Tantra and coupled sexual practices effective is not the connection itself. I mean, yes, that's extremely important. It's the preparatory work that the two individuals did. So again, keep in mind this one thing is that anytime there's a coupling, there's a pairing of two people coming together to create a we, you have two individuals first and foremost. And what those two individuals are bringing into the connection, into the relationship, into the dynamic is as relevant as the nature of the connection itself. So if you have two individuals who have no meditation history, don't have any energy practices, no yoga, etc., but they're like, ooh, I want to try Tantra, your experience may be a little flat. Or it may not. Again, I don't know. It's based on every individual sensitivity, but I will tell you, in all likelihood, it's going to be flat. And in particular, if they're men, or one of them is a man, what ends up happening is if he has not abstained from discharging for some period of time, again, his experience is going to be flat. So again, any of you who've got an interest in Taoism, Tantra, sacred sexual practices, I'm sorry, you're going to have to learn to abstain. It's a necessary pressure in order for you to have higher erotic experiences. So what I have illustrated here is what's called the steaming. The firing process is another term, but I like calling it steaming. Because what's basically we're doing here is that if you can look at sexual energy as being water. So water flows downhill until it gets to its settling point. And this is essentially what sexual energy does, is that sexual energy will percolate through the earth until it hits something solid that it can no longer percolate through. It could be clay, it could be metal, it could be some sort of bedrock that's non-permeable. And then water will settle in the earth. It'll settle on top of the earth. Again, it's always settling. I think this is the most appropriate word, is settling. So sexual energy settles down, and then it begins to perk up when the mind is activated. Our mind or our awareness. And our mind or our awareness is a bit like applying heat to something. I'll go a little more into that. So how do I describe this? So your will, which is basically your belly, the whole term fire in the belly, right? Fire's in the belly. So when you direct your will, your consciousness downward through the body, and in this case, the process basically is you're going towards your navel. So if you bring your awareness down towards your belt line to your navel, and you're feeling that and sensing that space, you may or may not notice it start to get warm. And so that this is the kind of alchemical fire that many ancient traditions talk about. So now what you're doing is with sexual energy, though, is as you start to cultivate it, it begins to fill. It begins to fill and build up. So it moves, well, I shouldn't say it moves. It basically, your reservoir, fills and it begins to overflow, so to speak. And so one of the things you may notice is that your belly will start to get warmer. And in some of these practices, which I'm going to describe here towards the tail end of this video, when you're doing these practices on a repetitive basis, and again, if you are abstaining, you will notice heat beginning to generate in the navel area of the body. And again, when I'm talking about the navel, what I'm actually talking about is right about the belt line. So it's about 2 to 3 fingers below the actual navel. So this steaming process is the application of awareness, of attention, and how will, or the energy of your will center, your solar plexus, your belly, whatever, it then is applied to the mixing area. So the mixing area is the lower dantian. This is the area below the navel. They call it the hara, the lower dantian, and there's several other names for it. And so the sexual energy then begins to become heated up. And again, the assumption here is that you've abstained and the levels are full. The sexual energy levels are full. Now, how you can accelerate this heating up process is linked to the perineum. I'm going to go into that in a moment when I describe this exercise. But basically what the perineum does is you lift it up, and there's a energy center that sits inside the pelvis, and it's associated with the kidneys, I believe. So when you lift up the perineum, it basically activates that center, which then the kidneys behave kind of as a turbocharger for sexual energy. And so what you're doing is you're lifting the perineum and you're directing it towards that area below the navel. And so you're mixing water and fire, which is steam. And so what we're doing here is we're converting what they would refer to as raw sexual energy, or jing, J-I-N-G, to chi, which is more subtle energy. And ultimately what we're trying to do is we're trying to evolve this energy into what's called shen, or spirit. So let me go ahead and describe this whole process. So the exercise goes as follows. So first thing you want to do, and this is a breathing based exercise. I've got it illustrated here. So you got perineum, navel, tongue, eyes, crown of the head. Now when I talk about the crown, what I'm actually talking about would be if you follow up the neck to the base of the spine, or I guess it wouldn't be the base of the spine, kind of the crown of the spine at the back of the head here. So this is the area you want to align to, is we're working on extending out that part of the head. So not here, but here. So again, those are the relevant areas we have to do on this. So now the inhale and the exhale are in 2 different directions. So when you're inhaling, you're using your awareness to follow your breath. So when you inhale, tongue is relaxed, eyes are relaxed, tongue is relaxed. You inhale all the way down to that space below the navel. And what I suggest you start off with is smiling inwardly. So smiling inwardly to that space below the navel, you may notice more light, more heat, etc. But one of the reasons for smiling inwardly is that it will enhance your experience at that part of the body. And so you're heating up and making your feeling and sensation of that part of the body more vivid. So you want to do this for maybe a couple minutes, or 2-3 minutes. You want to continue smiling below your navel. And what I would also suggest now, if it still feels rather vague, what I suggest doing is inhaling through your brow point. So what you have to do then is create a feeling like you're contracting at the third eye point, and it's as if you're pulling energy through the third eye down the front of the body, and again going into that space down below the navel. And this may enhance your feeling of that area as well. So again, breathing through the third eye point or inner smile into the navel, the area below the navel, the lower dantian. So once you feel like you have a fairly vivid perception of that part of the body, what we're going to do is you're going to inhale, retain the breath, and then you're going to lift your perineum, directing the perineum as if it's a laser pointer at the area below the navel. So lifting the perineum, directing it like a laser pointer to the area below the navel, and you may notice a pulsation, spin, or again, more heat. So, and again, what we're doing here is we're stoking it. You're stoking that fire. So you want to do this a few times. Then you want to exhale, pulling in the belt line. And it's always recommended when you're exhaling during these processes that you're pulling in your belt line very gently. And again, when you're lifting your perineum, I should also say that it's also very gentle. None of these things are death grips. They're all gentle pulls and gentle lifts. So once you feel like, again, you've got, and what we're doing here is we're enhancing our sensation, our feeling of that area below the navel. So once you feel like that's vivid, then what we're going to do on the next inhales, once again, inhale, bring your awareness down below the navel, lift up the perineum, and now you're going to begin your exhale. So the exhale is the compression upward. Think about it like a toothpaste tube. You're squeezing it up. So you squeeze from the bottom up to the top so you can get the toothpaste out. This is basically what we're doing here. So exhaling, keeping the perineum slightly lifted, pulling in the belt line, and now they're going to use the tongue. The tongue is a bridge. So when you place the tongue to the roof of the mouth, and again, this is gentle. You don't have to slam it up to the roof of the mouth or crush it up there. The more is not better in this case. Just touch the tongue to the roof of the mouth, wherever you naturally feel drawn to touch it. And then you're going to roll your eyes. So you're going to roll your eyes, again, up and back as if you're looking at the crown of the head. And this is all on exhale. So now on inhale, what you're going to do is you're going to inhale. You're going to roll your eyes back down towards the tip of the nose, tongue relaxed. Follow your awareness back down below the navel. Pelvic floor is relaxed. Perineum is relaxed. So again, completely filling with air. And then when you're ready to exhale again, lift the perineum, pull in the belt line, touch the tongue to the roof of the mouth, roll the eyes up towards the crown of the head. And that's what you do. And then inhale, again, what you do is you roll the eyes back down, relax the tongue, inhaling down towards the navel, perineum is relaxed, tongue relaxed, eyes relaxed. And I think you can kind of see the process here. So again, it's just one final time I'll go over it. So on inhale, awareness goes down, eyes go down, tongue goes down, awareness goes to the navel area. And when you're ready to exhale, right before you exhale, you lift the perineum, directing it towards the navel, pull in the belt line, tongue hits the roof of the mouth, eyes roll up to the crown, and that's how you raise the energy up. Now, what are we actually doing here? So it's what's called, it's called the microcosmic orbit. That's Mantak Chia's term. I don't know what the actual Taoist term is. I don't speak Chinese. But the orbit is relevant, regardless of what you call it. In Kundalini Yoga, this is a big thing. And pretty much every system that I've studied which talks about the circulation of energy, there's always this orbit pattern, because the fascia in the body, the connective tissue, operates like a semiconductor, meaning the backside of the body, the fascia, conducts in an upward motion. In the front side of the body, it conducts in a downward motion, generically. So this orbit, what we're doing as we exhale, we're pressurizing that energy up, and we're doing, looking up to the crown, all of this, is again, the story here is that energy follows your awareness. Energy follows attention. So if you're doing all these things with your body, putting the tongue on the roof of the mouth, rolling your eyes up to your crown, lifting the perineum, etc., what's going on here is that energy will then follow that pathway. And then in order to go back down, again, water will naturally kind of sink down, but you want to encourage the sinking, or the rotation back down towards the navel, because it's once it gets back down towards the navel, this is when it gets to mix at the lower dantian, and this is where fire and water mix, and you start to generate heat. So now while doing this process, you may notice several things. Again, for me, the most regular thing is I notice heat, particularly on the exhale. I notice a lot of heat towards radiating out towards my extremities, my fingertips and my feet, but also up to the crown of my head and other places. And so this is something, though, that I've cultivated. Again, I've done this practice thousands of times, and it is worth it. Trust me. It will connect you and unite you with your environment, with your body, with those experiences that so many of us want to have, which are more higher erotic experiences, more, vivid experiences of our partners, of our sexual energy, and of our life in general. Now, the one thing I'll have to mention real quickly is that I don't suggest doing these kinds of practices super, super frequently if you are not abstaining from discharge, because again, this stuff's going to fall kind of flat unless you've got a little bit of sexual energy buildup. The other thing is, it's helpful to have a yoga practice. It's helpful to have some sort of physical practice, because we're moving energy, and energy is going to move until it cannot. And so what it might hit are previous, let's say you have previous injuries. There's scar tissue forms. Energy can become congested at scar tissue. Energy can become congested in a number of different ways. And so what I'm going to talk about next, I'm going to talk about the efficiencies of sexual energy. What I mean by that is those things which you can do in order to, improve how this energy is circulating and to build up a greater spiritual pressure. So I'll get to that in a moment. All right. So what I want to talk about now is I want to talk about, the first part of this video I talked about the exercise that I suggest, which is the steaming process or the firing process. And also, again, how this energy moves. So what I want to do now are what are, the pitfalls. I don't want to use the word sin, but sin is somewhat appropriate. The traditional meaning of sin isn't, what we were probably taught. The meaning of sin is to fall short. To fall short of what? Well, in this particular case, energetic perfection. Energetic perfection simply means having energy that flows completely, fully, and smoothly within our form. And again, it's about the movement towards the spiritualization process or enlightenment. So some of the things that can inhibit the flow of sexual energy and ultimately inhibit the flow of life force are excess eating. Why excess eating? Because energy is required for digestion. So anything that's going to sap away the reserves here are things that are going to inhibit this pressure, this upward moving pressure. So alcohol distorts our disposition, our identity. And again, alcohol is depleting for our bodies. So again, it's something that reduces the amount of energy. Drugs, same thing. Drugs create a stimulus or an artificial high, which fatigue many of our glands. Let's see what else. You've got exercise. Oh, but exercise is good for us, right? Not really. Exercise is good for us, and we all need to move. The question is are we moving in an authentic way that's meant for each one of us individually, for our bodies, what our bodies can naturally handle? Like, for instance, I had a friend, and she was a triathlete. I am not a triathlete. I could not do what she does. The reason she's a great triathlete is because she's a natural fluid mover. She runs fluidly. She moves fluidly. In other words, the biomechanics of her motion are efficient. So her body adapts pretty well to high stress or, situations which are taxing on her body, which exercise is. Exercise is a stress, and that's one of the things when we're, again, you ask any medical doctor, like, what's seemingly the root of everything in terms of disease, and it always comes back to stress. Everyone says stress, 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 stress. Well, exercise is a stress. So you got to get your exercise right. It's something I do for a living, and I've done for 25 years, which is personal training. And I've seen a lot of examples where people don't exercise at all, and obviously that's not right. And I've also seen many examples where people exercise too much, and it works against their body, it weakens their immune system, and again, it depletes the overall life force. So obviously I've talked about the next thing, which is ejaculation. So ejaculation is obviously a release or a discharge, so that's draining. Worry, concern, excessive thought. I can just tell you, this is anecdotal, but I'm sure many of you who are watching this probably can relate, which is worry for me feels like running 5 miles. It's exhausting. And again, all we're doing is we're spinning on something. And worry is always some sort of past pattern. It's something that's usually related to your past or some sort of insecurity about your future. And so we end up basically spinning on something mentally that drains us for what? For nothing. I can't think of any examples in my life anyway where worrying about something or spinning on something obsessively was in any way, shape, or form helpful. It wasn't. So the idea here is that part of this efficiency process has to do with us getting out of our own way, or getting out of the way of the flow of life force or spirit or prana or shen or whatever you want to refer to it as. But it's about the ego stepping out of the way and realizing its true place. And the ego's true place in this overall construct, this matrix that we exist in, this reality, this illusion, it's a lot of terms, the point of what the ego is actually supposed to be doing is, again, what you're going to think about here is, I always love the analogy when people look at the body as a car. In this case, we're going to say a limousine. So let's say your body is a limo. You, the ego, the personality, is actually sitting way in the back of the limo. All he has is a little intercom button. Calls up to the driver, "Hey driver, can you turn right, turn left?" So that's like, choose the higher path or lower path, right? Turn right or to left. Okay. So ego has to shout all the way up to the driver to get him to do something. And this is the reality. There's life force streaming through you always and perpetually. And that's there to guide you. That's there to, and all you're doing is saying, go this way or that way. All you have is free will. All you have is a choice. But what you have most of all is the ability to surrender to this greater force, this greater life flow that's moving through you. And this greater force and this greater life flow is what's directing you towards what's authentic in your life, where your purpose lies in life, etc., etc. So again, to go back to this analogy, what's driving the car? When we're shouting up to, through the intercom up to the driver, who's driving? Who's this person driving the car? Well, the driver is spirit. That is the life force. The car doesn't move at all without the life force. Am I correct? The body will not move without life force. The ego has to recognize its position, which is making choices in the moment. And how do we make those choices in the moment? What signals do we pay attention to make those choices? Should those signals come from the mind, from something that's inherently trapped in duality, thinking about this and that? I don't think so. It comes from the body. The signals come from the body. They come from the gut. They come from your instincts. They come from a deeper knowing. But there's something interesting here, which is intuition transcends time and space. Slippery slope. So time and space are constructs, largely. There's something that's, not to say they're not real, there's simply something that our senses feel as real. The reality is that you reduce matter down to its most finite, it's basically just vibration. So again, just to refresh, how does this idea of getting out of the way of flow increase the efficiency? Well, again, you start making different choices. If you know what to pay attention to, if you know that life force, spirit is moving through you and it's directing you through your gut instinct, through your general instincts, through that deeper intuitive knowing, if you can trust that, then you can make the correct choices that ultimately are going to mean more energy, more flow. So with all that said, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I thank you for watching.